Hello, hello, hello. Good, good, good. Yeah. Thank you guys for coming out on a Friday. I know school is not the place you necessarily want to be. And I have a confession, which is that I am significantly lazier than the previous speakers who had their talking points all in their mind. I'm going to be reading off page, so bear with that. So, there is an ancient folklore about a hummingbird that comes from the Quechua people in the Andes Mountains of Peru. For those of you who remember Ishmael from grade 9, the Quechua would be considered lever people. I'd like to share their story with you now. One day, an enormous fire broke out in a forest. An entire woodland was suddenly engulfed in flames. Frightened, all the animals fled their home and ran out to the forest to the edge of a stream where they turned to watch the fire. As you can imagine, they were feeling completely discouraged, powerless, and panicked as their homes were being destroyed. None of them thought there was anything they could do about the fire except for one little hummingbird. This particular hummingbird decided it would do something. It swooped into the stream, picked up a few droplets of water in its beak, and then it flew to the fire and dropped the water onto it. It went back to the stream and did it again. Kept going back and forth, again and again and again. All the other animals watched in disbelief. One said, "What are you doing, hummingbird? You'll never put the fire out with only a few drops of water here and there." Another commented, "Don't waste your time. The fire's too big and you're so small. There's no way you'll succeed," etc., etc. But the hummingbird was resolute and focused on its task. As it continued making its trips back and forth, and as the other animals stood around disparaging the little hummingbird's efforts, it noticed how helpless and hopeless and sad they all looked. One of the animals shouted out angrily and challenged the hummingbird in a mocking voice. "What do you think you're doing, little bird?" And the hummingbird, without wasting time or missing a beat, looked back and replied, "I'm doing what I can." So why do I share this story with you? What does it have to do with us? Well, the hummingbird was doing whatever it could, whatever was in its power, to save its environment, right? Depending on who you talk to, the current state of the planet, well, it may not all be literally on fire. Not yet, at least. Climate scientists are generally in agreement that our world is metaphorically going up in flames, and that it's by our own doing. This, of course, is not news. Climate change, greenhouse gases, global warming, fossil fuel. We've all heard these terms. For anyone not sure how these things are related, very simply, when we burn non-renewable energy sources like coal, oil, and gas, we release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which traps heat and warms the entire planet. This, as many of you I'm sure know, is what is called the greenhouse effect, which is caused by greenhouse gases. Where do these gases predominantly come from? Let's take a look. Building and construction is about 5%. We can't really do much about that as individuals, you guys that is. Transportation, 15%. Not much you can do about that, not yet at least. Agriculture, forestry, and other land uses, again, it's kind of out of your hands. Then we have manufacturing and industry, 24%, and energy, 34%. We're going to come back to those later. We also know that the problem is only getting worse, and there's no secret as to why this is. Our society is obsessed with the idea that more is better. More people on the planet, more profits for companies, more appliances in our homes, more stuff in our closets, more cars on the road, more digital devices in our hands, on our wrists, in our laps. More. So what can we do about this? How can a single individual make any difference on a planet with over 8 billion people? That's a daunting question. And it's also why a lot of people throw their hands up and say there's nothing anyone can do about it. Nothing I can do, the problem is too big, etc., etc. As far as I'm concerned, that's a defeatist attitude. If you give up on taking care of the planet, then you're also giving up on humanity's future. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos may have their eyes on Mars, but at the moment, Earth is the only world we've got. And I, for one, would rather see us fix our home than have to find a new one because we mistreated it so badly. So again, what can we do? Well, we have to shift three things in this order, from big picture stuff, macro level, to little picture stuff on the micro level. First, we have to change the way we view our relationship with the planet and the resources that it has. Secondly, we have to change our consumption practices. And thirdly, we need to have more mindful awareness of ourselves and our surroundings. We need a radical shift in our mindset. Western civilization, which has in many ways dominated the world for hundreds of years now, is built on the belief that the Earth belongs to human beings, that the planet is ours to use, to abuse, and to exploit. And we need to move away from this kind of philosophy. We have internalized this idea that if something exists, it exists for us, and because of that, we've depleted resources, we've driven animals and plants to extinction, and now our own survival is under serious threat. This kind of thinking is called anthropocentrism. It's the belief that humans are the central, most important entity in existence, the idea that life revolves around us. And ironically, it is leading us to the brink of extinction. So we need to evolve from this to the understanding that our needs are no more important than the needs of other living things and entire ecosystems, which is called ecocentrism. When we prioritize all life, not just our own, and the ecosystems in which we live, then we move towards sustainability. So we need a philosophical paradigm shift. Second thing is we need a shift in our consumption practices. This goes back to the more is better mentality that we're all taught to believe. It's the foundation of capitalism, the foundation of consumer culture, and we need to move away from it. So if manufacturing and industry is responsible for a quarter of all the greenhouse gas emissions that are heating up our planet, we need to simply consume less. We need to buy less so that we discard less. We have become complicit in what's known as disposable culture, this practice of using products briefly and then throwing them away. We prioritize convenience and newness over durability and repair. We need to evolve from this model of consumption to what's called a circular economy, which is a model where consumers minimize waste and maximize the lifespan of products through sharing, repairing, and reusing them. And the third and final shift we need to make happen is a shift in our mindful awareness of ourselves and our surroundings. This is the most profound way that we can help the planet. Simply put, we need to be aware of when we and others in our community are wasting resources, and we need to act on it. So in a modern industrialized society, where do we waste the most? Energy, which happens to be the greatest contributor to greenhouse gases. How do we combat this? One way is simple. We turn things off. But this requires vigilance. We have to pay attention to our surroundings. When you leave the bathroom, turn the lights off. When your classroom is empty, turn the AC off. When you're not charging anything on a power strip, turn the power strip off so that it's not continually drawing energy. We have to stop wasting power because guess where most of our electricity comes from? It's fossil fuels. The UN has estimated that about 80% of the world's electricity still comes from coal, oil, and gas. In the US, that number is closer to about 60% because of supplements from nuclear energy. But in Taiwan, it's still around 80%. And by the way, that means that even electric cars, EVs, are still powered 80% by coal, oil, and gas. About 50 years ago, the 3 R's of sustainability were introduced: reduce, reuse, and recycle. And they remain the gold standard for environmental consumerism to this day. This is what they're about. But a lot of people mistakenly consider them equally effective methods at minimizing our impact on the planet, which is inaccurate. Reducing the amount of things we consume and thereby throwing less away is by far the best we can do. Using and repurposing old items so that we don't have to buy new ones as often comes in second here, and recycling is last. Recycling paper, plastic, metal, glass, etc. is definitely better than throwing that material in the trash. but it takes a good deal of energy to run recycling plants. It's quite expensive, and sadly, a lot of what we put in the recycling bins doesn't actually get recycled. It gets tossed into landfills. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which is a global policy forum that works with over 100 countries in the world, estimates that only about 9% of discarded plastic gets recycled. See it at the bottom? Sad little 9%. The remaining 91% ends up in landfills or being burned. That's not good. So you should definitely recycle, but only after considering consuming less and reusing, or what we call upcycling, the things you already have. What else can you do on a daily basis? There's a lot. Here are a few suggestions. Again, turn the power off. Lights, air conditions, power strips, everything. And think about it this way. We turn the water off when we finish washing our hands, right? So why don't we turn the lights off when we leave the room and finish using them? Bring your own bags to stores. Reusable cloth bags are great, but even plastic bags. How much space does a folded up plastic bag take up in your backpack? Not much, right? Why get new plastic bags from stores when we've already got so many floating around in our daily lives? And by the way, does anybody know what plastic is made of? Oil. Plastic is made of oil. Don't throw plastic bags away either. You can use them to line your trash cans and food waste bins. And instead of buying a pack of garbage bags, which are really just nothing but corporations' way of getting you to spend more money unnecessarily, reuse the ones you have. Save resources, save money. Try to avoid unnecessary packaging. So when you go to City Mall to buy pens, they've got the loose pens in the little containers, and then they have pens that are wrapped in plastic wrappers. Why would anyone need to buy a pen that's wrapped in a plastic wrapper? So be mindful of this. Some food items are a little bit trickier. A lot of them do require packaging to be sanitary, but fruit, for example, often comes in its own natural packaging. Bananas have peels, orange have rinds. So why would you buy a banana from Family Mart, which is wrapped in plastic, when the produce stand down the street sells bananas without plastic? And there's over packaging. Like during Mid-Autumn Festival, we give moon cakes, right? And they obviously need to be wrapped. But do we need to buy the ones that are individually wrapped in plastic, and then wrapped in paper, and then again in more plastic, and sold by the dozen in a cardboard box with a glossy plastic finish, and is again wrapped in plastic? So we need greater awareness around these things. When you're not using your phone, set it to airplane mode. By some estimates, airplane mode can save up to 30% of your battery power. 30%! Now let's see. When are some times you might not be using your phone? When you're asleep? Oh, how about when you're in class? That's a good one. Set your laptop to battery saver mode. So the first time my laptop was down to 10%, it automatically kicked into battery saver mode, and then I realized I can always have it set to battery saver mode. Still connects to Wi-Fi, run all my programs, so why wouldn't I do that? Bring containers when you pick up takeout food. This can be a bit more annoying. You have to carry them with you, right? But most restaurants in Taiwan are happy to oblige, and you'll be avoiding single-use disposable containers, which are the absolute worst, especially plastic ones. And speaking of single-use disposable containers, get yourself a reusable travel mug for all your milk tea needs. There's a reason why single-use plastic cups have been banned in Taiwan, but does that make it okay to waste paper ones? Of course not. And they still have plastic seals on top anyway, right? You can get a cute one with La Ishashan on it. Use fewer paper products. And this is a big one. Paper comes from trees, which literally suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere to use in photosynthesis. That's right. Trees are nature's carbon capture machines. The Amazon rainforest has so many trees, it's called the lungs of the world. So the more paper we use, the less carbon dioxide is being removed from the air. Next time you spill a little water on your desk in class, use a rag, not a tissue. It'll dry. Next time you go to a restaurant and they give you a paper napkin and you don't use it, take it home and use it later. Otherwise, they have to throw it away. And when you wash your hands in a public bathroom, take one single piece of paper towel to dry your hands instead of 5 or 6. I guarantee it will be enough. And then even save it to use it for a napkin later. And lastly, encourage others to be as mindful and conscious as you are. Do you have a little brother or sister at home? Teach them the ways. Your friend throwing out a perfectly good reusable plastic bag? Encourage them to stick it in their backpack for later. Here's a good one. Ask your homeroom teacher if they wouldn't mind creating a few more classroom jobs for students. Environmental jobs like power monitor, to be responsible for shutting things off when the room is empty. Or paper monitor, to check for thrown away paper that has a clean side and can be used for math scratch work. Or plastic bag monitor, to check for plastic bags being thrown away that could line the food waste bins. Guys, the bottom line is this. There's a fixed, finite amount of resources on this planet, and we all have to share them. When we entitle ourselves to believe that we have the right to use as much as we want, whenever we want, and however we want, just because it's more convenient for us, we forget about the fact that these resources are limited and that they don't belong to us. So to close, I'd like to remind you how we began, with the legend of the hummingbird. We can all be hummingbirds. We can all do what we can. And it's contagious. It'll spread. Ripples, right? Taking care of the environment can become the norm in our community. Now, did the hummingbird make a difference? Well, we don't know. The story ends with the little bird going back and forth, a couple drops of water at a time. We don't know if it saved the forest. And since we can't predict the future, we don't know if our efforts, both individual and collective, will be able to save our beautiful planet. But it doesn't cost us anything to try. And if we don't try, we can be sure how our story will end. Thank you.